Daniel Ross pulled his duffel bag through the metal corridor, his boots echoing against the floor. Around him, aliens of every shape and size moved with purpose. Some towered over him like walking mountains. Others skittered on multiple legs, their chittering voices filling the air. He felt their eyes on him, measuring, judging. The training facility stretched across an entire space station called Terminus 7. Humans had joined the Galactic Defense Coalition only 5 years ago, and they were still the newcomers. The galaxy had been at peace for decades, but threats lurked in the outer systems. Pirates, rogues, and unknown dangers meant the coalition needed soldiers. Good ones. Daniel found his assigned barracks and stepped inside. 20 beds lined the walls. 17 were already claimed. 3 aliens stopped their conversation and turned to look at him. The largest one, a Vryn named Ren, had scales that gleamed dark green under the lights. His yellow eyes narrowed. Another human, Ren said, his voice a low rumble. "How many of you do they plan to send?" "Just doing my part," Daniel replied quietly. He moved to an empty bed in the corner and set down his bag. A Talashi female with compound eyes and 4 arms approached. Her name tag read Ceres. "You look young. How old are you?" 23. Ren laughed, a harsh sound that made the others join in. 23 cycles? You are a child. I have 40 cycles of combat experience. Daniel said nothing. He began unpacking his belongings, placing them in the footlocker beside his bed. His movements were calm and methodical. "Does the small human have a voice?" Another alien called out. This one was an orphan, made of living stone and metal. "Or are all humans so quiet?" "I speak when I have something worth saying," Daniel answered without looking up. This brought more laughter. Ren stepped closer, using his height to loom over the human. "You will not last 1 week here. The training breaks even the strongest warriors. Your soft species will crumble." Daniel finally looked up. His brown eyes met Ren's yellow ones without fear. "Then I guess we will find out." The tension in the room grew thick. Ren seemed to expect the human to back down to show fear. When Daniel simply returned to his unpacking, the Vryn snorted and walked away. That evening, all new recruits gathered in the main hall. Instructor Gall stood at the front, his massive orthan body like a boulder given life. His voice boomed across the space. "You come from different worlds, different species, different strengths and weaknesses. Here, you are all the same. You are recruits. You know nothing. You are nothing. We will forge you into something worthy of the coalition, or you will fail and return home in shame." The speech continued for an hour. Rules, expectations, consequences. Daniel listened carefully, memorizing every word. Around him, some aliens whispered to each other. Others stood at rigid attention. He simply watched and learned. Training began the next morning. The first exercise was equipment distribution. Each recruit had to collect their armor and weapons from the supply depot. Daniel waited in line behind Ren and 2 other Vryn. When his turn came, the supply officer, a 4-eyed creature, looked him up and down. "Human standard issue," the officer muttered, scanning a data pad. "Small frame. Light armor. Reduced weapon load." Ren, already suited up in his heavy battle gear, laughed loudly. "Look at the human's toy armor. My scales are thicker than that plating." Daniel took his equipment without comment. The armor was indeed lighter than what the larger species received. His weapon was a standard pulse rifle, compact and efficient. He carried it all back to the barracks and began the fitting process. The armor had multiple pieces that needed to be assembled and calibrated. Daniel worked methodically, following the instruction manual displayed on his wrist computer. Other recruits finished faster, their armor simpler or their experience greater. He took his time, making sure every seal was tight, every connection secure. Ceres finished her own armor and paused near his bed. "You need help?" "No, thank you. Almost done." She tilted her head, her compound eyes reflecting light like jewels. "Why do humans volunteer for this?" "You are not built for war like Vryn or Orthan. No natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced strength." Daniel attached the final chest plate and stood. The armor fit well, responding to his movements. "Maybe that is exactly why we volunteer." Before Ceres could respond, Ren's voice cut through the barracks. "Time for showers. Strip down and clean off the travel dirt." The communal shower room had no privacy. Species with different biologies required different water temperatures and pressures, but everyone used the same large space. Daniel removed his armor and clothes, heading for the human-designated shower area. As he turned on the water, he heard the voices behind him go silent. He glanced over his shoulder. Every alien in the room was staring at his back. Covering his entire back from shoulders to waist was an intricate tattoo. A tree with deep roots and spreading branches dominated the design. But within the tree, covering every inch of bark and leaf, were names. Hundreds of names in various human languages and scripts. Dates accompanied many of them. Symbols were woven throughout: military insignias, city markers, personal emblems. "What is that?" Ceres asked, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel turned back to the water, letting it run over the ink. "Just a tattoo. Humans do them for decoration." But his voice carried something else, something the aliens could not quite identify. Pain perhaps, or memory, or determination. Ren stepped closer, his eyes scanning the names. "Those are identification marks. Names and dates. What do they mean?" "Nothing important," Daniel said. He finished washing quickly and left the shower, wrapping a towel around his waist. The tattoo disappeared from view, but the aliens continued staring at the space where he had been standing. Something about those names bothered them. Something about the way the human carried that mark on his skin felt significant. Ren frowned, his warrior instincts telling him there was more to this small human than appeared on the surface. That night, as the lights dimmed in the barracks, Daniel lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling. His hand moved unconsciously to touch his shoulder blade, feeling the raised skin where the tattoo lived. Tomorrow, the real training would begin. Tomorrow, they would see what humans were made of. Around him, aliens slept or whispered in their native languages. But Daniel remained awake, his mind full of memories and faces. The names on his back seemed to pulse with warmth against his skin. They would all know soon enough what those names meant, what they represented, why humans fought, but not tonight. Tonight, he simply remembered. Dawn came artificial and harsh to Terminus 7. Lights blazed to life throughout the barracks, accompanied by a sharp alarm tone that made Daniel's teeth ache. Around him, aliens stirred, some groaning, others already on their feet. 5 minutes to assembly, a mechanical voice announced. Full combat gear. Late arrivals will be disciplined. Daniel dressed quickly, his hands moving through the armor assembly with growing familiarity. 3 days had passed since his arrival, and he had memorized every strap and seal. Around him, the other recruits moved with varying levels of competence. Some species needed no armor at all. Others, like Ren, wore heavy plating that would crush a human under its weight. They gathered in the training yard, a massive space that could shift its gravity, atmosphere, and terrain at will. Today it resembled a rocky desert under a red sun. Heat already radiated from the ground, making the air shimmer. Instructor Gall stood before them, his stone body seeming to absorb the light rather than reflect it. Today you learn combat formations. You will work in assigned squads. You will move as one unit. Failure means your entire squad repeats the exercise. Daniel found himself assigned to Squad 7 with Ren, Ceres, 2 other Vryn named Caro and Tess, and an Orphan called Brex. Ren was designated squad leader by virtue of his combat experience. "Stay behind me. Human," Ren ordered as they took their positions. "Try not to slow us down." The exercise began simple. Move from point A to point B while under simulated fire. Ren charged forward, his powerful legs eating up the distance. The other Vryn followed, their natural speed making them blur across the terrain. Brex lumbered forward, his stone body impervious to the training lasers that struck him. Daniel ran at his own pace, keeping formation despite being slower. Ceres stayed near him, her forearms holding her weapon steady. They reached the objective third among the 6 squads, not impressive but not last. "Acceptable," Gall rumbled. "Next exercise. The course will now include obstacles and elevated gravity. Begin." The ground shifted. Suddenly, Daniel felt like he was carrying twice his own weight. His armor, light for a human, now felt like iron chains. Each step required twice the effort. Ren and the other Vryn adapted quickly, their physiology better suited for heavy worlds. Brex was completely unaffected. Daniel gritted his teeth and pushed forward. His legs burned. His lungs screamed for air that seemed too thin. But he kept moving, step by step, refusing to stop. The obstacle course included walls to climb, trenches to cross, and barriers to vault. What took the Vryn seconds took Daniel minutes. Squad 7 finished last. Ren spun on Daniel the moment they crossed the line. "You are dragging us down. Why did they even accept humans into this program?" Daniel bent over, hands on his knees, gasping for breath. Sweat poured down his face. But he looked up at Ren and said, "I finished. That is what matters. Finishing last is not finishing." Ren snarled. "It is failing slowly." Instructor Gall's voice cut through the argument. "Squad 7 will repeat the course. And again, until your slowest member can complete it within acceptable time." The other squad members groaned. Caro shot Daniel a look of pure hatred. Tess shook her head in disgust. Even Sirius seemed disappointed. They ran the course 6 more times. By the 3rd attempt, Daniel's legs felt like rubber. By the 5th, he was stumbling more than running. But each time he finished. Each time he refused to quit. And each time his completion time improved by a few seconds. On the 6th run, something changed. Ceres, instead of racing ahead, stayed beside him. "There is a rhythm to it," she said. Her voice calm despite the exertion. "Watch how you breathe. In for 3 steps, out for 3 steps," Daniel followed her advice. His breathing steadied. His pace became more consistent. They finished the course 10 seconds faster than his previous attempt. Gall nodded once. Squad 7 is dismissed. Rest period, then tactical training begins. The tactical session took place in a climate-controlled classroom. Here, at least, physical differences meant nothing. They sat at consoles and worked through combat scenarios, moving digital units across simulated battlefields. The first scenario was simple. A convoy needed protection while crossing hostile territory. Each squad member suggested an approach. Ren proposed a strong forward guard with heavy firepower. Caro wanted split forces to cover multiple angles. Tess suggested speed, moving fast enough to outrun threats. When Daniel's turn came, he studied the map carefully. "We should use the terrain here," he pointed to a narrow canyon, "to create a choke point. Make the enemy come to us on our terms. Then have scout units here and here to watch for flanking attempts." Ren laughed. "Defensive tactics are for cowards. We should attack with overwhelming force." "The convoy is the objective," Daniel said quietly, "not defeating the enemy. If we can get it through without fighting at all, that is the best outcome." "Spoken like a species with no natural weapons," Caro muttered. Instructor Gall observed without comment. The squads ran their scenarios. Ren's aggressive approach worked but resulted in heavy simulated casualties. Daniel's defensive strategy got the convoy through intact with minimal engagement. Gall's evaluation was simple. Both strategies have merit. Commander Ren achieved the objective through force. Commander Daniel achieved the objective through planning. A good soldier knows both approaches. The use of the word commander for Daniel made Ren's scales ripple with irritation. He was the squad leader, not the human. Afternoon brought endurance training. Long-distance running in standard gravity, but with gradually increasing resistance. Daniel performed better here. His human physiology built for persistent movement rather than explosive power. He outlasted several of the Vren who were faster but tired more quickly. Ceres kept pace with him easily, her 4 legs providing excellent stability. As they ran, she asked, "Where did you learn tactical thinking? You are young and have no combat experience listed in your file." "I read history," Daniel replied between breaths. "Human military history goes back thousands of years. Lots of mistakes to learn from. Your species has been fighting for thousands of years. Longer than that. We fought with sticks and stones before we fought with guns and ships." Ceres was quiet for a moment. "That is very sad." "Maybe, but it taught us things. How to survive. How to adapt. How to win when we should lose." That evening, Daniel sat alone in the recreation area, studying tactical manuals on a datapad. Most of the other recruits socialized in species-specific groups. Humans were rare enough that Daniel had no one from his own kind to talk to. Brex approached, his footsteps making the floor vibrate. "You do not give up," the Orthan said, his voice like grinding stones. "I respect that. Thank you. But you are still weak. Your body cannot match ours. Why do you try?" Daniel looked up from his datapad. "Because someone has to. Humanity was invited to join the coalition. That means we have to prove we belong here. I am not the strongest or the fastest, but I can be the one who refuses to quit." Brex nodded slowly. "There is strength in that. A different kind than mine, but strength nonetheless." After Brex left, Daniel returned to his studies, but his mind wandered. He thought about home, about Earth, about the people who were not here to see him succeed or fail. His hand moved to touch his shoulder, feeling the tattoo through his shirt. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to fail or to prove himself. The other recruits still saw him as the weak link, the liability. Ren's contempt was barely concealed. Even Sirius's kindness felt like pity. But Daniel had faced worse than mockery. He had faced loss. He had faced grief. He had faced the weight of memory and survived. These aliens did not understand yet. They saw his small frame and limited strength. They did not see what lived inside. What drove him? What made humans dangerous despite their lack of claws or scales or natural armor? They would learn. Eventually, they would all learn. The tattoo on his back seemed to burn with warmth as he thought this. Hundreds of names, hundreds of reasons, hundreds of reminders of why giving up was never an option. He returned to his studies, memorizing formations and strategies, preparing for whatever tomorrow would bring. 3 weeks into training, Squad 7 boarded a transport shuttle. Their mission brief had been simple: board a derelict space station, secure it against simulated hostiles, and extract dummy intelligence data. Standard training exercise. Nothing unusual. Daniel checked his pulse rifle for the 5th time. Beside him, Sirius did the same with her dual weapons. Ren stood at the front of the cabin, going over the plan with Caro and Tess. Breck sat in his reinforced seat, too heavy for standard safety harnesses. "Remember," Ren said, his voice carrying authority, "this is a timed exercise. Speed matters. The human will take rear guard position. Stay out of the way and try to keep up." Daniel nodded. He had stopped arguing about squad positions. Ren assigned him the rear because he was the weakest link. That was just reality. Better to accept it and do his job well than to fight for a role he was not ready for. The shuttle docked with the station. Red emergency lights flickered in the corridors beyond. The station had been abandoned for years, used now only for training purposes. It smelled of old metal and recycled air. Squad 7 moved out in formation. Ren took point with Caro. Tess and Sirius covered the sides. Brex moved in the middle, his bulk making him a living wall. Daniel followed at the rear, watching their backs. The first section cleared easily. Simulated hostiles appeared as holographic projections. They fired training lasers that registered on the squad's armor sensors. Hit too many times and your armor would lock up, simulating death or injury. Ren's aggressive style worked well here, pushing forward with overwhelming firepower. They reached the central hub without incident. This is where they would find the dummy data. Ceres accessed the computer terminal while the others provided cover. Daniel watched the corridor they had come from, his rifle ready. That was when the lights went out completely. Real darkness swallowed them, broken only by the glow of their helmet displays. "Systems failure," Sirius reported. "This is not part of the simulation." Then came the sound. Distant at first, but growing closer. Boots on metal, lots of them, and voices speaking in a language the translation systems could not identify. "Contact," Tess hissed. "Real contact." Multiple signatures. Ren pulled up his tactical display. "That is impossible. This is a training station. It is secured." More sounds. Weapon fire. The real kind that could punch holes in bulkheads and bodies. It was coming from multiple directions now. The squad pressed together, back to back, weapons raised. A voice crackled over their shared communication channel. "This is Instructor Gall. All squads, emergency protocol. The station is under attack by unknown hostiles. This is not a drill. Fight or flee at your discretion. Reinforcements are coming but will take time. Survive." The channel cut to static. Ren's scaled face showed something Daniel had never seen there before. "Fear. We need to get back to the shuttle," Caro said, his voice high with panic. "Negative," Tess replied. "Listen, they are between us and the docking port." Indeed, the sounds of combat were loudest in the direction they had come from. Other squads were engaged, fighting for their lives against an enemy that was not supposed to exist. Ren stood frozen, his rifle shaking in his hands. His combat experience was all simulation, all controlled exercises. This was chaos. This was real. Daniel felt something shift inside him. The fear was there, yes, but beneath it was something else, something cold and focused. He had felt this before in another time, another place. "We need to move," he said quietly. "Where?" Ceres asked. Daniel pulled up the station schematic on his wrist display. His eyes scanned the map, his mind processing options with sudden clarity. "The maintenance tunnels. Here. They run parallel to the main corridors but are too small for most species. We can use them to flank around to secondary docking bay. Those tunnels are barely big enough for you, Ren said, but his voice lacked its usual contempt. He was grasping for any plan, any direction. Then I go first and scout. You follow through the main corridors using the route I clear. Ceres can fit in the tunnels too. We will be your eyes. Ren looked at the others. No one had a better idea. Finally, he nodded. Do it. Daniel moved without hesitation. He found the maintenance access panel and pried it open. The tunnel beyond was narrow and dark. He slipped inside, Ceres following. The space was barely 3 feet high. Daniel crawled forward, his rifle slung across his back, his helmet light cutting through the darkness. Through the grated floor of the tunnel, he could see into the main corridor. Figures moved there. Not holograms. Real bodies in mismatched armor. Pirates or mercenaries using the abandoned station as a hideout and caught off guard by the sudden arrival of Coalition trainees. Daniel accessed the squad channel. Contact below. 4 hostiles. Ren, when I give the signal, breach through the side door here. He marked the location on their shared map. How will you signal? Daniel did not answer with words. He unslung his rifle, aimed through the grate, and fired 3 precise shots. The weapon's fire in the confined space was deafening. 3 hostiles dropped. The 4th spun, trying to find the source. Ren and the others burst through the side door, catching the hostile from behind. It was over in seconds. Move, Daniel ordered. His voice different now, harder, colder. The squad moved, following his directions through the maze of corridors. They encountered 2 more hostile groups. Each time, Daniel scouted ahead through the tunnels, providing intelligence and advantageous firing positions. Each time, his shots were precise and economical. No wasted ammunition, no panic, just calm execution. During the 3rd engagement, a hostile round struck near Ren, shrapnel cutting through his armor and into his leg. He went down with a roar of pain. Caro froze. Tess looked ready to run. Daniel dropped from the tunnel ceiling, landing beside Ren. Brex, cover us! Ceres' medical kit. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, applying emergency sealant to Ren's wound. The big Vryn stared at him with wide eyes. Where did you learn this? Not important right now. Can you walk? I think so. Good. We keep moving. Another hostile group appeared, trying to cut them off from the secondary docking bay. Daniel's rifle sang, each shot finding its mark. Beside him, Ceres matched his precision. Brex absorbed incoming fire on his stone body, advancing like a tank. Even wounded, Ren fought with renewed focus, following Daniel's orders without question. They reached the secondary docking bay. A small emergency shuttle sat there, old but functional. Daniel moved to the controls while the others provided cover. Can you fly this? Ceres asked. Yes. How? That is not part of basic training yet. Daniel's hands flew over the controls, powering up systems that had not been used in years. I had training before I came here. The shuttle lifted off just as more hostiles poured into the bay. Weapons fire pinged off the hull. Daniel threw the shuttle into a hard spin, avoiding the worst of it, and punched through the bay's atmospheric field into open space. They were clear, safe, alive. The squad sat in silence, processing what had happened. Daniel piloted the shuttle toward the Coalition rescue ships that were now swarming the station. His hands were steady on the controls. His breathing was calm. Ren spoke first, his voice weak from blood loss but clear. You knew what to do, all of it. The tactics, the medical treatment, the piloting. You have done this before. Daniel did not answer immediately. He guided the shuttle into a landing bay on one of the rescue ships. Only when they were safely docked did he turn to face the squad. His shirt had torn during the fighting, ripped by a piece of shrapnel that had missed his skin by inches. The tear exposed his back. The tattoo. The tree with its hundreds of names. Ceres gasped. The others stared. Now with time to truly look, they could read some of the names. Human names. Dates, some very recent. Some decades old. What is that? Caro whispered. What do all those names mean? Daniel stood, turning his back to them fully, letting them see. Every name. Every date. Every symbol. The full weight of what he carried. They mean, he said quietly, that this was not my first fight, and they are the reason I know how to survive one. Medical teams boarded the shuttle, taking Ren away for treatment. The others were checked for injuries. But all of them kept glancing at Daniel, at his back, at the story written in ink across his skin. Something had changed. The weak human, the liability, had saved them all, and that tattoo held the answer to why. The medical bay hummed with activity. Ren lay on a treatment bed, his leg bandaged and healing under advanced medical technology. The rest of Squad 7 sat in the waiting area. None of them had spoken much since the evacuation from the station. Daniel sat apart from the others, his torn shirt replaced with a standard coalition issue. But everyone in the squad had seen his back. They had all seen the names. Ceres was the first to approach. Her compound eyes studied him with an expression he could not quite read. "Ren will recover fully," she said. "The doctors say your emergency treatment saved his leg. Maybe his life. Good. Daniel, those names on your back. What are they?" He was quiet for a long time. Around them, other injured recruits were being treated. Some had not been as lucky as Squad 7. The hostile attack on the training station had been a complete surprise. A mercenary group using the abandoned sections as a base had not expected coalition forces to arrive. The battle had been brief but brutal. "They are people I knew," Daniel finally said. "People who died." Ceres sat beside him. The others, Caro, Tess, and Brex, moved closer to listen. Even wounded Ren turned his head from his bed to hear. "All of them?" Ceres asked gently. "Yes, all of them. There are hundreds of names there. 347 to be exact, as of last month." Daniel's voice was steady but distant, like he was speaking from somewhere far away. "The tattoo artist needed 6 sessions to complete it. It covers my entire back from neck to waist." Tess, the youngest Vryn, asked in a hushed voice, "How did you know so many dead people? You are only 23 years old." Daniel looked at his hands. They were calloused, scarred in places. Young hands that had seen too much. "Humans do not live as long as most species. We do not have your technology, your medical advances. We are new to space, new to the coalition, and before we joined, we were alone." He paused, gathering words for a story that was hard to tell. "The first name on my back is Robert Chen, my great-grandfather. He died in a war on Earth before I was born, but my grandmother told me stories about him. He fought for his country, for his beliefs. He died on a battlefield far from home." Ceres translated this for the others as some struggled with certain human concepts. War between factions of the same species was not something most coalition races understood anymore. "The next cluster of names are my family. My grandmother, who died when I was 8. She raised me after my parents died. My father, Thomas Ross, killed in a mining accident on a colony world when I was 3. My mother, Anna Ross, died 2 years later from a disease we could not cure. My sister, Emma, who was 7 years old when raiders attacked our settlement. I was 12. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. The casual brutality of Daniel's history was shocking to species who had not experienced war or poverty in generations. Then there are the names from my first posting. I joined the Colonial Defense Force when I was 17. They sent me to the outer settlements, the places where pirates and slavers attack because nobody is watching. I was part of a quick response unit. We were always too late, always arriving after the attacks, finding the bodies, trying to save whoever was left. Daniel's voice remained steady, but his eyes were far away. Some of these names are civilians we could not save. Children, families, old people who could not run fast enough. Some are soldiers who died beside me. Some are friends who died in my arms." He stood up and turned his back to them, lifting his shirt enough to show the upper portion of the tattoo. "See these here? This cluster? These are from the Bellway Station massacre. 300 colonists dead before we arrived. We got there in time to save 17 people. I remember every name of the ones who died. Every single one. Why?" Brex asked, his stone face incapable of expression but his voice full of confusion. "Why remember such pain? Why mark yourself with death?" Daniel lowered his shirt and turned back to face them. "Because they deserve to be remembered. Because their lives mattered. Because someone needs to carry them forward." He sat down again, his shoulders straight despite the weight of the conversation. "Humans have a saying. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. We do not want to forget. We cannot afford to. Every name on my back is a lesson. A reminder of what happens when we are not strong enough, not fast enough, not smart enough." Ceres's voice was soft. "But you carry so much grief. How do you not break under it?" "Because grief is not just pain. It is also love. Every name represents someone I loved, or someone who loved life, or someone who deserved better than they got. Carrying them with me means they still matter. They still have an impact on the world. Through me, they still make a difference. Caro, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Is this why you fight? For revenge? No, Daniel said firmly. Not revenge, prevention. I fight so that other people do not have to carry as many names as I do. I fight so that fewer children lose their families. I fight so that the list of names does not grow as fast. He looked at each of them in turn. When you laughed at me for being weak, you were not wrong. Humans are physically weaker than most species. We have no natural armor, no claws, no enhanced strength. But we have something else. We have memory. We have the ability to take pain and loss and turn it into determination. The tree, Sirius said suddenly, understanding dawning. The design around the names. It is a tree. Yes. In human culture, trees represent life, growth, connection. The roots go down into the past. The branches reach up to the future. But the trunk, the center, is the present. All those names, they are my roots. They ground me. They give me strength. And from that strength, I grow toward the future. Ren's voice carried from his medical bed. You saved us today. You knew what to do because you have done it before. You have fought real battles. Yes. Before I came here, I had 3 years of active combat duty in the outer colonies. I have seen friends die. I have held positions against impossible odds. I have made the hard choices. The ones where people die no matter what you decide. That is why I was recruited for the Coalition program. Not despite my past, but because of it. Tess looked ill. We mocked you. We called you weak. We thought you were the one who would fail. You were judging based on what you could see. Physical strength, speed, durability. By those measures, I am weak. But strength comes in different forms. Humans learned that a long time ago. We had to. We were prey animals once, thousands of years ago. Weak and slow compared to the predators. But we survived by being smart, by remembering, by working together, by refusing to give up even when we should. Daniel pulled out a small device from his pocket, a portable tattooing tool. This is why every human soldier carries one of these. When someone dies, when we cannot save them, we add their name. We take them with us. It is our promise to them and to ourselves. You will not be forgotten. Your death will not be meaningless. We will carry you forward and fight harder because of you. Instructor Gall entered the medical bay, his massive form making the floor vibrate. His eyes, ancient and knowing, settled on Daniel. I have been reviewing the combat footage. You led your squad through hostile territory with minimal casualties. You applied advanced combat techniques not yet taught in this program. Yes, sir. Why did you not reveal your experience earlier? Because experience is not something you tell people about. It is something you show when necessary. I came here to learn, not to show off. Gall nodded slowly. You understand something most of these recruits do not. Combat is not about glory or strength. It is about survival and protecting others. Your tattoo tells me you learned this lesson the hard way. The only way it can be learned, sir. The instructor looked at the gathered squad members. This human carries the weight of hundreds of dead. He could have broken under that weight. Many would. But instead he uses it as fuel, as motivation. That is what makes humans dangerous. Not your weapons, not your tactics, but your ability to take unbearable pain and keep moving forward. After Gall left, the squad sat in silence. Finally, Ren spoke. Daniel, I owe you an apology. I judged you based on my own pride and ignorance. You judged me based on available evidence. That is fair. I am physically weaker than you. But you are not weaker where it matters. In here. Ren tapped his chest. Your heart is stronger than mine. I froze when the fighting started. I have all this experience in simulations, but when it was real, I did not know what to do. You did. Daniel stood and approached Ren's bed. He extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Ren took it, their grips firm. We both have things to learn from each other, Daniel said. That is why we are here. As the medical staff cleared them to return to barracks, Squad 7 walked together. Not as a group of individuals from different species, but as a unit. They had seen combat together. They had survived together. And they had learned what the names on Daniel's back really meant. They meant that humans remembered. They meant that humans endured. They meant that humans would never stop fighting for those who could not fight for themselves. Training resumed 2 weeks after the station incident. The hostile mercenary group had been captured and removed. The Coalition had apologized for the security failure, compensated the injured, and honored the dead. 6 recruits had been killed in the fighting. 30 more had been wounded. Squad 7 returned to their training with a different dynamic. Where before Ren had commanded through authority and volume, now he listened. Where before Caro and Tess had dismissed Daniel's suggestions, now they paid attention. Where before the squad had been 6 individuals, now they moved as one. Their first mission back was another simulated exercise, this time in zero-gravity combat. The training module floated in space, a maze of corridors and chambers where gravity could be adjusted room by room. "Daniel," Wren said during the briefing, "you have experience in low-gravity combat? Some 2 months on asteroid patrol duty. Then you should take point on this one. The rest of us have never fought without gravity. The old Wren would never have suggested this." Daniel nodded and pulled up the mission parameters. "The key to zero gravity is thinking in 3 dimensions. There is no up or down. Every surface is a potential fighting position. Ceres, your multiple arms will give you an advantage for anchoring and shooting simultaneously. Brex, you are too heavy for traditional movement, but we can use that. You can become a fixed position that we maneuver around." They entered the training module and immediately felt the disorientation of weightlessness. Caro spun awkwardly, trying to control his momentum. Tess grabbed a handhold and held on too tightly, afraid to let go. Daniel moved through the space like he was born to it. Small pushes against walls, controlled spins, using angles and surfaces that others ignored. "Do not fight the weightlessness," he called out. "Use it. Move with intention, not force." He demonstrated, flowing through a corridor that had simulated hostiles appearing from multiple angles. His shots were just as precise here as in gravity. When a hostile appeared behind him, he used the wall to push himself into a spin, firing as he rotated. Ceres adapted quickly, her forearms allowing her to anchor, aim, and propel herself simultaneously. "This is remarkable. I can cover more angles than in gravity." "Exactly. Play to your strengths." Brex's solution was different. He anchored himself in a large chamber using magnetic locks in his stone body. "I am your fortress," he announced. The others used him as a rallying point, darting out to engage hostiles and falling back to Brex's position for cover. They completed the exercise faster than any other squad. Instructor Gall reviewed their performance with obvious approval. "Squad 7 has shown adaptive thinking and tactical creativity. Daniel, your leadership here was exceptional. But more importantly, you taught rather than commanded. That is the mark of a true soldier." In the following weeks, Squad 7's reputation grew. Other recruits noticed their cohesion, their effectiveness. Instructors used them as examples. Daniel found himself teaching informal sessions in the evenings, sharing tactics from human military history with whoever wanted to learn. One night, a group of 8 recruits from different squads gathered around him in the recreation area. He had pulled up holographic displays showing ancient Earth battles. "This is called the Battle of Thermopylae," he explained. 300 Spartan warriors held a narrow pass against an army of thousands. They used the terrain, the choke point, to negate the enemy's numbers. For 3 days they held. A Vryn named Toril from Squad 3 asked, "Did they win?" "No, they all died. But they delayed the enemy long enough for their allies to prepare a defense elsewhere." Sometimes victory is not about surviving. It is about buying time, creating opportunities, achieving an objective even at great cost. The concept troubled many of them. Death was not something coalition species considered acceptable in warfare anymore. Their technology, their tactics, all focused on minimal casualties. Daniel continued. Humans learned warfare on a planet where resources were limited, and survival was never guaranteed. We fought each other for thousands of years. It was brutal and terrible, but it taught us things. How to win against superior numbers. How to survive when surrounded. How to turn defeat into something useful. Ceres asked, "Do you think that human history of conflict makes you better soldiers?" "Not better. Different. You have technologies we never dreamed of. You have peaceful societies we still struggle to build. But we have experience with desperate situations. We know what it is like to fight with everything on the line. That knowledge has value." Another recruit, an orphan named Dram, spoke up. "We heard about your tattoo. About the names. Do many humans do this?" "More than you would think. Not everyone, but many soldiers. It is our way of honoring the dead while still moving forward. In human culture, memory is sacred. We build monuments, hold ceremonies, tell stories. The tattoos are just another form of that." He stood and turned his back, lifting his shirt. The names were visible in the soft light of the recreation area. "Each of these names has a story. Each one taught me something. Some taught me courage. Some taught me caution. Some taught me mercy. Some taught me when mercy is not possible. Together, they made me who I am. Over the following months, something unexpected happened. Recruits from other species began adopting aspects of the human memorial tradition. A Talishi named Vora started wearing a braided cord with beads representing fallen comrades. A Vryn painted the names of dead family members on his armor in their traditional script. An Orthan carved symbols into his stone skin for each friend lost. The practice spread until nearly half the recruits carried some form of memorial. The instructors noted it in their reports. This human tradition, this open acknowledgement of loss and grief, was changing the culture of the training program. Squad 7 continued to excel. In urban combat simulations, Daniel taught them tactics from human police and military operations. In wilderness survival exercises, he shared techniques humans had used for millennia. In leadership scenarios, he demonstrated how to make hard choices under pressure, but he also learned from them. Ceres taught him Talishi meditation techniques that helped maintain calm under stress. Ren showed him Vryn combat forms that improved his hand-to-hand fighting. Breck shared Orthan philosophy about patience and endurance. Caro and Tess demonstrated advanced weapons maintenance and marksmanship. They became more than a squad. They became a family. One evening, Ren called a squad meeting in their barracks. "Graduation is in 3 weeks," he said. "We will be assigned to active duty after that. I wanted to say something before we get there." He looked at Daniel. "When you arrived, I thought you were the weak link. I thought humans did not belong in the coalition military. I was wrong. You have taught us things our instructors could not. You have shown us that strength comes in many forms. You saved my life, all our lives, and you did it without hesitation." Caro added, "You never asked for recognition. You never demanded respect. You just did your job and let your actions speak. That is true humility." Tess said quietly, "You carry all those names, all that pain, and you still smile. You still teach. You still care about others. I do not know if I could do that." Brex's deep voice rumbled. "You are small in body but vast in spirit. That is what matters." Ceres approached Daniel and took his hand in two of hers. "In Talishi culture, we have a saying. The strongest trees grow in the strongest winds. Your species has known terrible winds, terrible storms. That is why you are so strong." Daniel felt something unfamiliar. His throat tightened. His eyes burned. For 3 years since joining the military, he had been the strong one, the reliable one, the one who held others together. He had not allowed himself to be vulnerable, to show weakness, to need support. But here now, with these aliens who had become friends, he felt safe enough to let his guard down. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough. "All of you. Thank you for giving me a chance, for looking past what I appeared to be and seeing what I could offer." They sat together that night, sharing stories from their homeworlds, their families, their dreams. Ren talked about his father's disappointment that he had not become a traitor like their family expected. Ceres shared her struggle with artistic passions and a culture that valued logic above creativity. Caro and Tess revealed they were cousins, both trying to escape the shadow of a famous military ancestor. Breck spoke of feeling isolated even among his own people, too philosophical for a species that valued practical action. Daniel listened to each story and recognized the same thread running through all of them. Everyone carried weight. Everyone had struggles. Everyone had names they remembered, if not on their skin, then in their hearts. "Maybe that is what makes a good soldier," he said finally. "Not the absence of pain or fear or doubt, but the ability to carry those things and still move forward. Still fight for something bigger than yourself." The others nodded. They understood now. They had learned from the human with the tattoo. They had learned what it meant to remember the fallen while still serving the living. They had learned that weakness and strength were not opposites but partners, each giving context to the other. Squad 7 would graduate in 3 weeks. They would be assigned to different posts, different ships, different missions. But they would carry forward what they had learned here. And some of them, in their own ways, would carry the names of those they had lost, just like the human who taught them to do so. Graduation day arrived with ceremony and precision. The training station's main assembly hall glittered with the representatives of a dozen species, all gathered to witness the completion of the latest coalition military training cycle. Of the 200 recruits who had started the program 6 months ago, 147 remained. The others had washed out, been injured beyond continuation, or in 6 cases died during the station attack. Squad 7 stood in formation with the other graduating squads. Their armor was polished and decorated with their squad insignia, a human tree intertwined with symbols from each member's species. It had been Cirrus's design, approved unanimously. Daniel wore his dress uniform, the formal version that all graduates received. Unlike his training gear, this uniform had a transparent back panel specifically designed to display his tattoo. Other human recruits wore similar modifications, their own memorial tattoos visible. The Coalition had officially recognized the practice, adding it to the cultural database as a significant human military tradition. Instructor Gall stood at the podium, his stone body impressive in the formal lighting. Today you cease to be recruits. Today you become soldiers of the Galactic Defense Coalition. You have trained together, bled together, and for some of you nearly died together. You are ready. The ceremony continued with medals and commendations. Squad 7 received the Valor Star for their actions during the station attack. Daniel specifically received the instructor's recognition, an honor given to recruits who demonstrated exceptional teaching and leadership qualities. But before the final dismissal, Gall called Daniel forward. "Recruit Daniel Ross, please approach." Daniel walked to the podium, unsure what this was about. Gall looked down at him, his ancient eyes showing something that might have been pride. 6 months ago, I watched a young human arrive at this station. He was mocked, dismissed, and underestimated by his fellow recruits. He said nothing in his defense. He simply did his job. When crisis came, he revealed skills and experience that saved lives. When asked about the names he carries, he taught us all what it means to honor the fallen. "Daniel Ross, you have changed this program. You have given us a gift we did not know we needed." Gall gestured, and a holographic display appeared behind him. It showed the memorial wall that had been installed in the training station's main corridor 3 months ago. On it were names from every species, soldiers and civilians who had died in Coalition service. The design mimicked Daniel's tattoo, a tree with roots and branches, names flowing through its form. "This memorial exists because of you. Because you showed us that remembering our dead is not weakness but strength. Every recruit who passes through this station will now see this wall. They will understand that service means sacrifice, and sacrifice deserves to be honored." The assembly hall erupted in applause. Daniel stood there overwhelmed. He had not expected this. He had simply shared his culture, his way of dealing with grief. The idea that it had spread, that it had meaning beyond himself, shook something loose inside him. After the ceremony, Squad 7 gathered one last time in their barracks. Tomorrow they would receive their assignments and depart for different postings across Coalition space. Tonight was for goodbyes. "I am assigned to patrol duty in the inner systems," Wren announced. "Keeping trade routes safe." "It is good work, honorable work. I will be joining a diplomatic escort unit," Siri said, "protecting ambassadors and delegates. They requested someone with my language skills." Caro and Tess had requested and received joint assignment to a border monitoring station. Brex would be joining a heavy assault unit that specialized in shipboarding actions. Daniel opened his own assignment packet. For a moment, he just stared at it. Then he laughed, a sound mixing relief and irony. "What is it?" Wren asked. "They are sending me back to the outer colonies, training and advisory role for colonial defense forces, teaching them what I learned here." "That is perfect," Siri said. "You are a natural teacher." "But more than that," Brex added, "you will be protecting the places you could not protect before. The names on your back, they will help you save others." That night, Daniel lay in his bunk for the last time, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow would begin a new chapter. He would return to the colonies, but this time with Coalition backing, Coalition resources, and Coalition authority. He could make a real difference. He could prevent more names from being added to lists like his. But something else occupied his mind. The memorial wall, the spreading tradition, the way other species had adapted the human practice of remembering. It had started with him, with his tattoo, with his willingness to share his pain. And now it was bigger than him, bigger than humanity. Before dawn, he found himself standing in front of the memorial wall. His fingers traced names he recognized, soldiers from other squads who had died during the station attack. And there, at the base of the tree design, was a new inscription in multiple languages. "We remember, we honor, we carry them forward." Footsteps behind him. He turned to see Instructor Gall approaching. "Could not sleep?" the old Orthan asked, thinking about tomorrow, about what comes next. You are worried you will fail. I am worried I will not be enough, that more people will die and I will have to add more names. Gal placed a massive hand on Daniel's shoulder. You will fail sometimes. People will die despite your best efforts. That is the nature of what we do. But you understand something that many soldiers never learn. Failure is not the end. As long as you remember those who fell, as long as you learn from each loss, their deaths have meaning. You give them meaning. Is that enough? It has to be. Because the alternative is forgetting, and that is true failure. Daniel nodded slowly. They stood together in silence. Two soldiers from different species, different backgrounds, united by the understanding that memory and duty were intertwined. The next morning, Squad 7 boarded their transports. Goodbyes were brief but meaningful. Ren clasped Daniel's forearm in the human gesture. Ceres touched her forehead to his in Talashi tradition. Caro and Tess gave him a Vrin battle salute. Breck simply said, "You are my brother, human. Do not forget that." "I never forget anything," Daniel replied with a slight smile. "It is kind of my thing." They departed one by one, leaving Daniel alone on the platform. His own transport would leave in an hour. He spent the time walking the station one last time, imprinting it in his memory. He passed the training yard where he had struggled through his first exercises. He passed the classroom where he had shared tactical lessons. He passed the medical bay where Ren had recovered. And finally, he passed the memorial wall, adding his own silent prayer to its growing collection of names. His transport arrived. The pilot, a young human woman named Beth, greeted him. "Lieutenant Ross? Welcome aboard. I hear you are something of a legend around here. Just someone who did his job. The memorial wall says otherwise. My sister went through training here last month. She told me about you, about the tattoos, about what you taught everyone. She started her own memorial tradition, see?" Beth turned, showing her own tattoo, smaller than Daniel's but clearly in the same style. "I lost friends in the frontier wars. Now they come with me wherever I go." Daniel felt something shift in his chest. This was his legacy. Not the medals or commendations, but this. The spreading awareness that the dead deserved remembrance, that loss could be transformed into purpose, that carrying the past was not burden but honor. "That is beautiful work," he said sincerely. The transport lifted off, carrying Daniel away from Terminus 7 and toward his next assignment. He watched the station shrink through the viewport until it was just another star in the vast darkness, but he carried it with him. The lessons learned, the friends made, the lives saved. They joined the names on his back, adding context and meaning to everything he had experienced. 3 weeks later, Daniel stood in a small colony town on the edge of Coalition space. The local defense force, poorly trained and under-equipped, gathered around him. They were mostly human, with a few aliens who had settled here for various reasons. "I am Lieutenant Daniel Ross," he introduced himself. "I am here to teach you what I know, to help you protect this colony better than previous colonies were protected." He turned his back to them, letting them see the tattoo, letting them count the names. Each of these names is a lesson. Each one represents someone I could not save, or someone who saved others through their sacrifice. I carry them so I do not forget what is at stake, so I remember why we train, why we prepare, why we stand watch. A young colonist, no more than 19, raised his hand. "Sir, how do you deal with it?" "Knowing you lost so many?" Daniel turned back to face them. "By making sure their deaths were not meaningless. By using what they taught me to save others. By being better today than I was yesterday. That is all any of us can do. Remember the fallen, honor them, and fight like hell to make sure the list does not grow as fast." He pulled up a tactical display. "Now let us talk about perimeter defense. Your current setup has 3 critical vulnerabilities. We will fix them today." The training began. Daniel taught with patience and precision, passing on knowledge earned through pain and loss. The colonists learned quickly, motivated by the understanding that their teacher knew exactly what would happen if they failed. Months passed. The colony's defenses improved dramatically. When pirates tested their perimeter, they were repelled cleanly. 0 casualties. 0 new names. Daniel added no new names to his tattoo that year. It was the first time since he had started the practice that a year had passed without loss. But he knew it would not last. More threats would come. More battles would be fought. More names would eventually be added. That was the reality of his life, his choice, his burden. But now he understood something he had not known when he first arrived at Terminus 7. The burden was lighter when shared. The memory was stronger when others helped carry it. The legacy was greater when it inspired others to remember. His tattoo was not just his anymore. It belonged to a tradition now, a spreading practice across coalition forces, across species barriers, across the divide between those who had lost and those who had not yet lost. They laughed at the human recruit when he arrived. They saw his small frame and weak body. They dismissed the tattoo as primitive decoration. But the tattoo spoke volumes to those who learned to listen. It spoke of endurance and memory. It spoke of honor and sacrifice. It spoke of what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of beings who had forgotten what it was like to truly struggle. And in speaking, it taught the galaxy something it had forgotten. That those who fall are not gone as long as someone remembers. That loss can be transformed into purpose. That ink and skin and memory can be stronger than any armor. Daniel Ross stood watch over his colony that night, his tattoo hidden under his uniform but present in his thoughts. The names whispered to him not in grief but in encouragement. Remember us, honor us, carry us forward. And he would. For as long as he drew breath, he would carry them all. Every name, every story, every lesson learned in blood and tears. That was his promise. That was his purpose. That was his legacy. Written in ink across skin that remembered even when the mind wanted to forget.